Okay, on this video, we're going to be doing the injury, penalty, passing, and shooting ratings. This is going to be the most labor-intensive portion of the ratings process. We're going to be using our calculator here to do these. We're going to be using our forward and defense tables where we have injury, penalty, passing, shooting. I also have this again printed out and taped onto my monitor just to save me from having to click back and forth, between tabs all the time. And usually I have this page as a separate file, and I'll keep it on another screen where I have dual monitors set up, just to avoid a lot of clicking back and forth. But we're just going to go with it this way for now. So what I'm going to do is actually bring it in down this way. Now on these I'm going to use Forecaster. I don't really need NHL.com on these stats. Whatever you're comfortable with, go ahead and use. So let's get started on the first guy here, Pierre-Edouard Bellemare. So we're going to go to his career stats, and I'm going to look at the last 3 seasons up here, 21, 20, and 19. So what I'm going to do is come to my calculator here, and I'm just going to start putting these numbers in here. So there's his games played, his penalty minutes. Now this is populating, it's giving me the per 82 statistics, and then his assists and his goals. Again, we're going to give the most weight to the most recent season. That's the most important one we can do, and then we're going to use the prior seasons just to verify. If he played in another league at some point, we can say he played in the AHL and he scored 15 goals there. That's adjusted to the equivalent of 7 NHL goals. An NCAA guy coming into the league who scored 20 goals, that's the equivalent to 8 NHL goals. You can look up NHLE score, and it'll give you those values there. It's not perfect, but it's a lot better than not having anything to go on. So Bellemare, our first one's going to be injury. So normally I just say, okay, he played 53, 69, 70, and look over here at his injury chart. But because these last 2 weird COVID seasons, so 2021, we have to add 26 games to every team. So we're really going to say 79 there. In 1920, he played for Colorado, and Colorado missed 12 games, so he had 81 there. So now I can look and say, okay, he played 79 games this season. That's an 8. And I'm going to verify the season before, 81, 76. So he had an 8 for all of those. And I'm going to undo that to get back to what he really had. But we have an 8 for Bellemare's injury rating. Penalties, he had 32. So his penalty rating is falling in this cat the 15 to 40 range, giving him an 8 for penalty. Same deal the season before, so let's go ahead and put 8 for his penalty rating. On passing, he really took a dip this season, had 3 assists, which would put him in the category for 3. The season before he had 15, the season before he had 10, so he's in that 4 and 5 range there. So I'm going to hold him up in this 4 range. We can't give him a 5, but I'm not going to dip him all the way down to a 3 just yet. We'll give him a 4. If he has another really down season, then we'll bring him down to 4 next year. But for now, we're going to hold him up at, we're going to take him to 3 next season. So we're going to hold him up at 4 for right now. And then his goals, he scored 14 goals prorated, so that's in that 10 to 16 range. That's a 5 rating. Same thing last year, 11 goals. That's in the 10 to 16 range. So 2 years in a row, and we're going to go ahead and give him a 5 for shooting. We'll move on to Soderberg here. Oh, he's not on there right now because he's not signed. In that case, I'm just going to look him up. Soderberg. All right. So we get the last 3 seasons there. All right, come into our calculator. So he played 45, 70, and 82 games. Populate his penalty minutes, assists, and goals. And again, we got to add 26 to his total here. It's 71, and then in 1920 he played for Arizona, so we have to add 12 games. That's 82. So 71 games played puts him in the 7 range for injury rating. The 2 seasons prior to that, he hadn't missed a game. So I'm not going to, well, that was in the 8 range. And he's kind of in the middle of the 7 range. I think if he had a couple more games played there, I might feel comfortable leaving him at an 8, but I will go ahead and drop him down to a 7. And he has had injury history in the past, too, I think. 82. He's actually been pretty darn healthy. So you know what? Let's keep him at an 8, and we'll see what happens next season. If he has injuries again next season, we can drop him down. But let's keep him at an 8 for right now. And those are just the kind of conversations you have to have with yourself. Just look at them, look at the player's history, and just see how comfortable you are. If you need an extra season to confirm, then it's okay to hold the guy's rating for a season. If he dips down into this range or lower again next year, then definitely bring him down. But he may bounce back and play 82 games again this season, and then we'll feel more justified in keeping him in that 8 range. All right, so now we have to go back and fix this. So he actually played that many. So now our per 82 are correct. So let's go ahead and penalty 33. That's going to put him in the range of 8. Season before he had 21, 26. That's all in that 8 penalty range. So easily we're going to give him an 8. Passing, he had 18 assists. That's a 5 on our table. This 2 seasons before that, he was at a 6. So let me look even further back. 6. I mean, he's had really good seasons. He's only had this 1 down season, and he's right. He's only right on the edge, really. So let's keep him at a 6 for this year, and we'll see what happens next year. Goals, 13 goals, puts him in the 5 range. He was in the 6 before. He was in the 7 the year before that. So he's got a 5, 6, and 7. He's only had 1 season that dipped down below. Same thing. Let's keep him at 6. See if he bounces back. If not, then next season for sure his rating is going to go down there into that 5. Jason Magna. Now this is where we're going to have to do some extra work because he is not a full-time NHL player. So for Magna, we get those last 3 seasons. Okay, so total games played. He played 7 in the NHL and 13 in the AHL, so that's 20. He played 51 total and 71 there. So let's add 26 to this season, give him 46. And the year before he played for Colorado, who missed 12 games. So that's going to be 63 there. So 46 games played is at the very bottom of that 5. The year before he was at a 6. So I think we're definitely going to go ahead and drop him down to that 5 because he's way down there. He's right at the bottom of it, and he doesn't have a strong history. So we're going to give him a 5. Now, let's go back here. 20 and 51 we had. So his penalty minutes, we're going to just combine all penalty minutes, NHL, AHL. He had 2, 24, 34. That doesn't change a whole lot between leagues, so there's no point in adjusting it. And then we're going to go down here to our adjustment. So his AHL stats, his assists were 2, 16, and 23. So he really has 1, 8, and 11. And then we're going to look at his NHL. He had 2 NHL assists this year, so that brings his total up to 3. And he didn't have any last year. We're going to do the same thing for goals. In the AHL, he had 7, 18, and 20 goals, which translates into 3, 8, and 9 NHL goals. And he didn't actually score any in the AHL, so we're not adding to that. But this just kind of gives us an idea of what he would do across a full season of the NHL, theoretically. So his penalty, he had 8. That's half of what we would need for a 9. And before that, he was 8, 8. Since he did such a good job this season staying out of the penalty box, we're going to go ahead and give him a 9 for penalty. Passing, 12, 13, 13. They're all right there in that 5 range. So let's give him a 5. And then shooting, 12, 13, 10. All of that's right there in the 5 range also. So pretty simple once we had that conversion from AHL to NHL stats. And you're like, well, how is he going to be better than a guy like Bellemare, who's a full-time NHL player? But he's really not. Once we get all this out, Magna is an AHL player, so he's going to get a 4 for quickness, while Bellemare is going to get a 5 for quickness because he's a 4th-line NHL player. And so things like that can help balance it out at the end. But that's another video where we'll do the quickness ratings. Let's go to Kadri. Get his career stats. So we want the last 3 seasons. All right, so Kadri had 56, 51, and 73 games played. We're going to add 26 from last season, which takes him up to a full 82. The season before in Colorado, he needs to add 12 games. So he had 82, but we're only going to give out a 9. If he had 82, 82, 82, then we're going to give him a 9. Otherwise, that 82 is going to qualify in the 8, in the range of 8. The season before, he was at a 6. So let's look at right here. Before that, he was at an 8, 8, 8. So I think this is just saying he's healthy again. He's traditionally an 8 player for injury, so we're going to give him an 8 injury rating. Penalty. Let's take those games played totals back down. All right, penalty, 34, 97, and 43. Assists. Goals. All right, so his penalty, he had 50 penalty minutes last year. That puts him in the 7 category. Before that was 150, was a 4. Before that was back in the 7 again. So 2 out of the last 3 years, he was in the 7 range. We're giving the most weight to the most recent year, which is the 7 range. So we're going to give Kadri a 7 for penalty. His assist total, 31 assists. He just cracked that 7 range for passing. He did that 2 years ago also. So for having 2 out of the last 3 years there, including the most recent season, I don't see any reason not to give him a 7 for passing. And then shooting, 16 goals this year. We can go ahead and say that's in the 5 or 6 range. Sometimes there's overlap on some of these, and that's just to give you, to say, like, if he had never broken 16 goals before, then I'm going to look at it as a 5, as 16. But he has done it before. He's been at 30 when he's been at 15. So he's actually been above this range, the low end of the 15. So when he scores 16 goals, I'm going to say that's a 6, because he's shown in the past, the year before he actually was in that 7 range. So we're going to go ahead and give him a 6, because that seems to be where he's settling in at. And now we're going to go to Sheldon Dries. I want to do this one as another example of an AHL player. So the last 3 seasons are right there. His games played total 21, 55, 65. We're going to add 26 games here. He was with Colorado in 1920, so we're going to add 12 games on this one. So he had 47 last year, which puts him in a range of 5 for injury rating. And the 2 years prior to that, let's see, 67 gives him a 7 injury. The year before that, 65, he was right at the upper limit of 6. So the last 3 years, you got 5, 6, 7. I could give him a 6 for sure, but just by averaging those out. But 47 games played, that's like right just at the very bottom of the 5 there. And he hasn't really shown that he can play that many games in the NHL, that 56 to 65. So we're going to go ahead and give him that 5 for his injury rating. If he goes to Vancouver and skates in a ton of games next year in the NHL, I'll be happy to bump his injury rating up. So let's take this back down. All right, now let's populate his penalty minutes. Is 18, 69, and 45. His assists, so now we need to go back down here. So his AHL numbers from the last 3 years was 5, 14, and 8 assists, which is 2, 7, and 4 equivalent. I had 0 NHL, 0 NHL, and in 18-19 he had 3 assists in the NHL. So we're going to add that here and make that 7. And I said it's not perfect, but really it's pretty consistent on a lot of these guys when you look at what they're doing in the AHL versus NHL. Some of the other stuff like QMJHL, some of those equivalents can get a little screwy, but guys who are playing in the KHL, upper European leagues, and AHL, those are always pretty accurate. And then, these guys down here who are coming from those leagues, they're not really impact players in the NHL anyway. So if their ratings are a little bit off, it's not a big deal. Once they become established full-time NHL players, those will get fixed. So I don't really dwell on those. All right, his goals. Goals scored in the AHL, 5, 21, and 3. So he had 2, 10, and 1 equivalent. 0 goals, 3. So we'll make that 4. All right, so where are we at on tries? Penalty. 70 penalty minutes. That could be a 6 or a 7. The year before he had 103, which is a 5. So I'm going to consider that 70 to be in the 6 range there. And we're going to give him a 6. For passing, he had 8 assists, which is a 4. The year before that, 10 and 9, both in that 4 range. So we're going to give him a 4 for passing. And then finally shooting, he had 8 goals, which is 4. The season before, 15, which is a 5. And the season before that, he had 5, which is in that 3 and 4 range. So 2 out of those last 3, he's in this range. The most recent season carries the most weight, so we're going to give him a 4. Now, when we move to the defensemen, again, we're going to be looking at a different chart now because their penalty rating is a little different here, and their passing and shooting ratings are a different table altogether. So let's knock out a couple of them real quick. Let's go Erik Johnson. All right, Erik Johnson. Let's get his last 3 seasons. So here he had 4, 59, and 80. We're still going to add 26 games that were canceled from last season, and then 12 games with Colorado from the season before. So he had 30 games played this year, which is a 3 injury. Terrible. But the year before that, he had 80, or he had 70. He was a 7 and 8 the previous 2 years before that. So I'm not going to drop him all the way down to a 3. Let's split the difference and give him a 5 this year. Here he is, 5. And then we'll just see if he bounces back. If not, if he's has another injury-filled season, he'll dip down further than that. But we really like to establish, even though we like to give the most weight to the most recent season, we still want to see established patterns before drastically altering a guy's rating. It's fine to drop him by 1 point or raise him up by 1 point based on a single season, but if you're going to be moving 2 points or 3 points, I'd really rather see an established pattern where he's doing something across multiple seasons. All right, so let's go back here. Penalty minutes, 2, 20, 38. Assists, 1, 13, 18. And goals, 0, 3, 7. So because he played so few games this season, even though I want to give that season the most weight, it's hard to really put a lot of stock into numbers when you only played 4 games. So this time we are going to rely more on the past seasons. So even though his penalties were 40, 41, which will be a 7, he's not really done that before. He's been in this 8 range before. So we're going to hold him there. I'm going to give him an 8 for penalty and just see what he does this coming season. Assists, 21 assists is 7. But, I mean, it's so hard to say that that's true because he had 1 assist in 4 games. Both the seasons before, he prorated to 18 assists, which is in that 6 range. So let's go ahead and give him a 6. And then here, shooting, 4 goals, 7 goals. 4 or 5 is where you say, I'm going to go look further back than that. He had a pretty good season in the season before that, so we're going to bump him up at 5. Let's move on to Patrick Nemeth. All right, Patrick Nemeth. Get the last 3 seasons there. So his games played were 52, 64, 74. We're going to add 26 there. And then he was with Detroit in 1920. Detroit missed 11 games. So he's 75 there. So he's right there in this 71, 75, 78. And when they're that close and we're going to give him the most weight to the most recent season, we'll give him an 8. So that's his injury rating. We'll bring those back down. Penalties, 20, 28, 53. Assists, 7, 8, 9. Goals, 3, 1, 1. All right, so on penalties, 32 and 36 the last 2 seasons. Both of those are in the range of 8 on our chart here. So we're going to give him an 8 for penalty. Passing, 11, 10, 10. He's consistent there. That's all within this 5 range. So we're going to give him a 5. Goals, he outperformed himself this year. 5 goals. That's could be in the 5 range. Because it's prorated, I definitely want to hold it down to the 4 range. Before that, he was in the 3s, but seeing he's at the upper end here, could possibly be there. I'm going to go ahead and give him that 4 for shooting for this season. Jacob McDonald. All right, let's look at his stats. He's another guy that's going to need to have some AHL numbers. So this season, McDonald played 33 games, 56, 74. We're going to add 26. And then the season before that, Colorado, he gets 12 games here. All right, so 59 games played. Is a 6 injury rating. Season before that was at 68, which was a 7. So we're going to go ahead and give him this 6 rating because he's right in the middle there, and it's the most recent season. So let's give him a 6. And bring these back down. All right, so his penalty minutes. He had 8, 22, and 27. And then for his assists, he didn't play in the AHL that year. 26 and 29. So he had 0, 12, and 14. And then we'll add in, he had 8 NHL assists this season. 0, 0. So there's his assist total. Now goals, again 0, 16, 14. So his goal totals were 0, 16, 14. And we'll add in the NHL. He had 1 this season and 1 in 18, 19. So 1, and then we'll bump that up to 15. That's kind of wacky numbers there. That's one time where it may not work out, but that's probably a guy going from top pairing AHL minutes to bottom pairing NHL minutes. Let's see where we are. We're on his penalty rating. Penalty rating 20. 20 penalty minutes. 8. The 2 seasons before that, 32 and 30. Those are both in the 8 range. We're going to give him an 8. Passing. He had 20 assists, which is a 6. Season before that, 18, which is a 6. Season before that, 16. All those are in that 6 range. Some of them could be in the 5, but because he was up there this season, we're really looking at 6. So we're going to give him a 6 for passing. This is another one of those things where you're like, well, he's not. How is he outperforming NHL players? I mean, he has passing skills. He's just not really an NHL defenseman all the time. He did well this season, but so he might get like a 5 there, or Eric Johnson might have an 8 as being a first pair defenseman. So that's making a huge difference in how they actually utilize these ratings. Just don't be scared to give guys what they deserve. Goals now, he had 2. That's a 3. And the seasons before that, he was like way up here in 9. So I'm not sure really what's going on with him there. He's clearly, he can score goals based on his history. So I don't think he's really that bad at it. I'm not going to give him the worst rating, but let's see. Here's another thing we can look at. We can go back. So the WHL, Jacob McDonald. This is the last season that we rated him. He had fives in all those categories. So I don't have a problem saying, let's call it a 5 there. That's just based on his history. We'll see, if he gets another good NHL season and he starts to establish that trend where he should be in that 3 or 4 range, then we'll give him 3 or 4 when we have all of the information. Right now, the information is telling me that he's better than that, but we can't really confirm it until next season. Let's just finish up these last couple of players. Devin Taves. So we're going to get his career stats here. All right, the last 3 seasons. Devin Taves. 53, 68, and he had 72 that season. We combined AHL and NHL. We're going to add 26 games here, and he was with the Islanders last year. They missed 14 games, so that's going to become 82. So 79 games played, 82. He's right there in that 8 range. Pretty durable player. And let's correct this down to 53 and 68 again. So we'll fill in his penalty minutes. 16, 16, and 20. Let's see. He had 14 AHL assists back here. And he had 5. All right, so we're going to add in what he had in the NHL. 22, 22, plus 13 is 20. And goal is 9, 6, plus 5 is 7 there. So on his penalties, 25, 19, and 23. Most of that's going to be in this 8 range. So we're going to give him an 8 for penalty. Assists, he had 34 assists. That's way up here in the 8 range. The season before he had 27, which is the very top of the 7 range. So when we see that, he's right on the edge of an 8 last year. This year he's solidly at the very top of 8. So we're just going to go ahead and say for sure we're going to give him an 8 there. I don't need to see 2 seasons. There really is 2 seasons of that when you think about it. Goals, 14 goals. So that puts him in an 8 there. The 2 seasons before that, he was down in this 5, 6 range. He got an 8. So here's one where I might want to see him prove it 2 years in a row. And I'm going to give him a 7. I'm going to split the difference and give him a 7. And then our last player, Dan Renouf. Let's get his last 3 seasons here. Right there. Mainly an AHL guy. So last season he had 23. There we go. We're going to add 26 games to this season. And he was with Colorado, so he has 12 games there. You can see how without these COVID shortened seasons, the process will be a little bit faster without having to add games into what was canceled. And we're just being generous there because there's no way we want to ding everybody in the league 26 games played. And I don't really want to have to adjust the tables just for one season. So it's easier just to add in those games and just give everyone a freebie, and assume that they would have played those 26 games. Anyway, so he's 49 games played, That's a 5 injury rating. Season before that, 7, 7. So let's split the difference and give him a 6 and see what happens this year. Now his penalty rating, let's fix this. All right, so his penalty minutes, 20, 82, 121. Assists, we need to make the equivalent scores, so 2, 14, 22, so he had 1, 7, and 10 assists, and then he had 3 assists in the NHL, so he gets 4 total for that year. Same thing with goals, 1, 2, and 2 gives him 0, 1, 1. He didn't have any NHL goals to add, so he ends up with 0, 2, 1 there. So for penalties, 71 penalty minutes is a 6. The 2 seasons before that, he was 5 and 5. So let's give him a 6 because he's right down there at that lower end of that bracket there. Give him a 6. And then for his assists, 14, 11, 11. Those are all in that 5 range. So we're going to give him a 5. And then for shooting, 0, 2, 1, all those are in the 3 range, the lowest end you can get. So we'll give him a 3. And that's it. That's how you calculate all those ratings right there.